Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a Sangria Encore Azalea. This is Sangria Encore Azalea, a beautiful repeat flowering azalea that has big, beautiful pink flowers in the spring and then again in the late summer and fall. Sangria could probably end up reaching over 5 feet in height and 5 feet in width, but it's pretty easy to keep this one in the 4 foot by 4 foot range. Sangria Encore Azaleas are hardy in zones 6 to 9. I always say on azaleas in zone 6A, you probably don't want to have them out in open space. You want to have them under the canopy of trees or on a foundation. Sangria is going to be one of the faster growing Encore Azaleas. We'll probably get at least a half a foot in growth out of these a year. In terms of sun or shade on Encore Azaleas, they definitely like sun more than the traditional azaleas. I would probably say a half a day on the older varieties, but these new Encores, I would give them at least 3/4 of a day of sun. The primary uses for Sangria Encore Azalea would be, number one, is a great foundation plant. If you have windows that are lower, though, you may want to pick a different Encore Azalea because this one can end up 4 or 5 feet. But if you have a wall with no windows, it'd work great, or on a corner. They'd also look great mass planted, and maybe get a smaller white flowering azalea in front of it. The primary features on Sangria are, number one, these big, beautiful pink flowers in the spring, and of course it will repeat flower later in the summer and fall. Sometimes I'll get spring flowering and a fall flowering. Last summer, we got a full flower in mid-summer as well. These flowers are really big, and this is in a container, so they're probably going to be even larger in the ground. This is one of the larger foliage varieties. Just as a group, when I compare azaleas with larger foliage on them tend to be a hardier sort, but they're also varieties that are going to end up 5 feet or taller over time. I've included planting instruction videos in the description of this video. Azaleas definitely need to be mounded up some. They definitely need to be well drained, and you definitely don't want to over mulch or just constantly water these. It's very, very important on azaleas that we let them dry out between rains or between waterings. The first year your Encore Azaleas are in the ground, you're definitely going to want to check them occasionally for water, and if it's dry, round the space around them and then let them dry out. Once these are rooted in well and have anchored themselves, you really are not going to need to do a lot of ongoing watering if you're in an area that gets regular rainfall. If it gets abnormally dry, you can drag a water hose to them. Like I said, just drown it, but then definitely back away and let them dry out again. Definitely fertilize your Encore Azaleas. I typically will wait until after the first flowering in the spring to fertilize azaleas, and you can use any kind of azalea, camellia, rhododendron fertilizer, any slow-release fertilizer for acid-loving plants, just right after they finish flowering that first time. If you need to do any pruning on your Encore Azaleas, there's really only a short window after they flower the first time in the spring to do it, so pay attention to that. This one is kind of almost done with this first flowering in the spring, and if I needed to do any pruning on it, I can take a third out of it right when it finishes. That'll give it time to flush back out and reset flowers to bloom again later in the summer. In terms of pest on Encore Azaleas, azaleas are very susceptible to lace bugs, which is an insect that can get on the back of the leaf and discolor the top of the leaf over time. It tends to happen more if they're in an area that's not getting a lot of air movement around them. I usually just ignore it. It's not that big of a deal unless it just gets completely out of control, and then there are a lot of options to control those. Deer definitely love azaleas. They love them as much as we do. So if you put these out in open space and you have deer, they'll almost certainly come along and do quite a bit of damage to these. So you'll want to avoid that. The main issue with azaleas is if you plant them too deep and over mulch them or put them on any kind of irrigation system, you'll definitely end up loving these to death. Definitely follow some best practices planting instructions and mound them up and don't over mulch them. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the low maintenance, repeat flowering Sangria Encore Azalea. Thank you for watching my video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also comment below with any questions you have about azaleas. Thanks again.